Noor Saeed noticed something strange the first morning she walked beyond the quiet cottages of Grange Hollow. The village looked peaceful from a distance, surrounded by gentle hills and open fields, but the calm felt too perfect. As she stepped into the tall grass, she saw a thin line of mist stretching across the landscape like an invisible border. Curious, she moved closer and raised her hand. Instead of empty air, her palm met resistance, soft at first but unmistakably solid. The mist brightened slightly, reacting to her touch as if the air itself had turned into a wall. Birds circled above the field but refused to cross the boundary. When Sam found her standing there, she could already feel the unease settling in her chest. Something impossible surrounded the village, and no matter how peaceful Grange Hollow looked, Noor knew she had just discovered something that wasn't meant to be noticed. Inside the village, everything continued as if the barrier didn't exist. People walked the streets, bought groceries, and chatted in doorways with quiet familiarity. But Noor quickly realized there were unspoken rules guiding everyone's behavior. When she mentioned the strange mist at the edge of the fields, villagers avoided her eyes or changed the subject. The shopkeeper smiled politely but offered no real answers. Phones had no signal, and every road leading out of the village eventually curved back toward the same fields. Sam tried to stay calm, insisting someone would notice they were missing eventually, but Noor sensed a deeper silence hiding beneath the surface. The villagers knew about the barrier. Their careful avoidance wasn't confusion, it was deliberate. Whatever surrounded Grange Hollow had been there long enough for everyone to learn the same rule: never question the boundary. Behind the quiet churchyard, Noor finally met someone who wasn't pretending everything was normal. Jonah Kells sat on an old stone bench with a worn notebook full of sketches and notes. When Noor mentioned the barrier, Jonah didn't look surprised at all. Instead, he opened the notebook and showed her a hand-drawn map of the entire village with a thick circle marking the boundary. He had been tracking it for weeks, measuring how it shifted slightly over time, sometimes moving a few inches like something slowly breathing. Jonah explained that his father had tried to cross the barrier months ago and never came back. The strange part wasn't just the disappearance, it was how people in the village slowly stopped remembering him altogether. Photos changed, records vanished, and conversations about him faded away. Jonah believed the barrier wasn't just a wall. It was something far more dangerous, something capable of rewriting reality itself. After hearing Jonah's story, Noor began noticing strange details all around the village. Old photographs in the pub had scratched out faces where people should have been. Mailboxes had names partially erased as if someone had tried to remove them in a hurry. In the church registry, entire pages were missing, leaving quiet gaps in the history of the village. Even Aunt Lorna seemed uncomfortable whenever Noor asked too many questions. She would quickly change the subject or insist people had simply moved away. But Noor could feel the pattern forming. Grange Hollow wasn't just hiding secrets, it was actively forgetting them. The more Noor paid attention, the more she realized the barrier's influence reached far beyond the fields. It wasn't just preventing people from leaving. It was erasing the memory of anyone who tried. Determined to understand how the barrier worked, Noor and Jonah returned to the mist line the next afternoon. Jonah picked up a rock and threw it toward the invisible wall. The stone struck something unseen and bounced back, landing in the grass behind them. For a moment, the fog shimmered with faint light, pulsing gently like energy responding to the impact. Curious, Noor stepped closer and raised her hand again. When her fingers touched the invisible surface, the reaction was completely different. Soft ripples of light spread outward across the mist, almost like water responding to a touch. Jonah watched closely, realizing the barrier wasn't reacting randomly. It was responding to them. The glow faded slowly as Noor pulled her hand away, leaving the quiet field exactly as it had been before. But both of them knew something had changed. The barrier wasn't just blocking the village. It was aware of anyone who tried to interact with it, ignoring the village's unspoken rules. Noor decided to knock on the mysterious green door near the post office. The door had always been avoided by the villagers, but Noor believed it might hide answers. When it finally opened, an older man named Mr. Rook looked out at her with sharp, watchful eyes. Inside his small office were shelves filled with old ledgers and records documenting the strange events in Grange Hollow. Unlike the rest of the village, Mr. Rook had been quietly keeping track of everything people tried to forget. He explained that years earlier there had been a strange incident on a nearby hill, something powerful enough to attract outside authorities. Soon after, the barrier appeared around the village. The officials left, but the barrier remained. Since then, the people of Grange Hollow had slowly learned to live with it, even if it meant pretending nothing unusual was happening. Mr. Rook revealed the truth behind the villagers' silence. When the barrier first appeared, many people tried to escape. Some ran toward it, believing it was only mist. Others drove vehicles directly into it. Every attempt ended the same way. The barrier would react violently, and soon afterward someone connected to the attempt would vanish from the village's memory. Families forgot loved ones. Friends forgot conversations. Even written records began to disappear. Over time, fear replaced curiosity. The villagers realized that challenging the barrier didn't just risk death, it risked being erased entirely. So they stopped trying. Pretending the barrier was normal became the safest way to survive. But Noor could see the fear behind the silence. The entire village had built its quiet routine around the same terrifying truth: the barrier punished anyone who dared to fight it. One afternoon, Noor, Sam, and Jonah returned to the boundary together, determined to observe it more carefully. But when they arrived, someone was already there. Councillor Greaves stood calmly with her hand pressed against the glowing mist, watching the faint light ripple across its surface. She turned to face them with a strange calmness, warning Noor that the barrier was not something to provoke. According to her, it reacted to attention and learned from every attempt to challenge it. Before leaving, Noor noticed a faint grid of scars across the back of Greaves' hand, as if she had touched the barrier many times before. The encounter left Noor with a troubling thought. If the barrier could learn and adapt, then someone in the village might already understand it far better than anyone else.